Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. All right, welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and a very special welcome to a very special man. And full disclosure, we have history going back. I reckon, Darcy, it might be
Go on, say 15. Say 15
years, right?
There you go.
I reckon it's close to 15. Mr. Darcy Smyth, coming in all the way from the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I appreciate it. And yes, coming from the Sunshine Coast, yes, but it is good to connect with you, mate, because the blood in me is still very much Victorian. I feel as though when the winter cold hits in Melbourne, still a part of my nervous system is still connected to it. I reckon I really do miss Victoria. Not at this time of the year.
No.
But, mate, the thing that I miss the most, and I love living at the sunny coast, I'd never change it, but the thing that I do miss the most, mate, seriously, I knew we said we wouldn't talk about footy, but when I look up at that TV screen and I see the MCG on the screen,
yes,
I'm like, that's home. I miss that. It's the one thing I do miss. But yeah.
It is. But the MCG in the middle of summer is a great place to be. The MCG
sure
in the middle of winter, not so great.
Yeah, fair.
Which, myself and my daughters will be there on Sunday because Melbourne plays the blockbuster, the game of the round against North Melbourne. So there'll be about 12 people there.
Yeah.
But it's going to be bloody cold. So, mate, we've been connected for a lot of years, and I've watched your progress because we both were at the Coaching Institute. You were a student. You also worked there a bit. You went out on your own a number of years ago. And you've created some amazing stuff over the last few years. So we're going to talk about sales and sales leadership. But before we do that, for the listeners' benefit, because they may not have heard of the great man Darcy Smyth, but after this, they definitely would have. Although having said that, you are very well known around the business community in Australia.
I appreciate that, mate. Thanks.
Just a little bit of your background in terms of, I know you've got a psychology background, but business-wise, what's led you to do what you do today?
Yeah, so I'm not a big fan of talking about myself. So if I pass over to you, mate, to fill in the gaps, just go for it. But I am someone who's been obsessed with psychology since the age of 10. Always loved it, always fascinated by it, always fascinated by why we do what we do. And that just sort of fell into a sort of sales field and understanding sales psychology as I grew up. Went on to study psychology and psychophysiology at Swinburne University in Melbourne. Then got into coaching, then met you, and my life's never been the same since. But essentially, mate, the long and short of it is, getting into sales psychology, teaching sales psychology, teaching companies why we buy what we buy, why we say yes when we say no, why we say yes when we say yes, and why we say no when we say no, and everything in between. I'm fascinated by that, mate. I'm fascinated by the human buying brain and how it operates because it's so irrational.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make any sense. We've all had experiences where we've walked into a plaza or a shopping mall or whatever it may be, and you walk out with 10 bags underneath your hands. 7 of them might not even be yours, but that's okay. It's a story. That's another podcast.
That's right.
But you look into those bags and you think, I just spent thousands of dollars here, and I probably don't need any of this stuff. What is it that caused the buying to happen? I'm fascinated by that. Now, that's talking on a retail level, of course. But in the world that I play in, a lot of our clients at the moment, in a lot of the work we do are in construction, manufacturing, project-centric work. So how you sell, the psychology that goes into selling a $1.2 million project, construction project, or whatever it may be, or a $3 million a year manufacturing deal, whatever it may be, the same psychology applies, but just on different levels. And so all of that is fascinating. All of it is entertaining as it is effective to know. I've never met a person who isn't interested in the freak staring back at them in the mirror. It's all, no matter what level you teach it at, it's always entertaining and effective. So
it is.
Good.
It is.
Yeah.
And a number of years ago, you became director of Y Bravo, and you and your compatriot have been able to create a really, really successful business, doing a lot of great work in the, as you say, in the construction manufacturing, but in the business world. And you've done a lot of gamification. So I want to explore a number of things today, including I guess, the psychology of selling, and perhaps maybe go a little bit deep in terms of psychology as to what actually makes people do the things they do, which are about either irrational or rational. But it
Yeah.
does give us some insights in terms of a little bit of human behavior. And
Yeah.
certainly the stuff around the gamification of what you're doing now and how we can, because I look at you and what you guys are doing and think you're actually making sales fun again. Because I think
Mm,
over many years, sales sort of lost its luster and its fun. It became business, which meant we've got to sell this product and got to close this deal and maximize our revenues and our margins and stuff.
yes.
And so I'd love to explore just a little bit about it at a high level before we sort of delve into some details around what was the thought process behind the ideas of the outbound game, but also the leadership game in terms of
Oh,
the
mate.
gamification.
Boy, have I got a story for you. Ready to strap in? All right.
Absolutely.
Good, good, good. So I attended, back when I was just running my own business, doing my own thing, I attended a training with a guy at the time called Marshall Thurber. Have you ever heard of Marshall Thurber at all
I have heard
before?
of him. Yeah.
Marshall Thurber is, you ever read Rich Dad Poor Dad by Kiyosaki?
Yep.
Um, you never learn who the rich dad is from Rich Dad Poor Dad. They don't actually have a name, and his poor dad was his literal dad.
Yeah.
Supposedly, the rich dad was a conglomerate of all of Kiyosaki's top 10 mentors. Marshall Thurber was one of those mentors.
Right.
So I attended a training with Marshall, and my business essentially doubled almost immediately. Like overnight, what I learned in that training just blew my mind in terms of what business is actually all about. And the funny thing about it was all delivered through the use of games.
Hmm.
It was a whole game-based training. You learned about yourself through the way that you play games, because the way we play games is the way that we play life. That's not always 100% true, by the way,
Hmm.
but it's
Hmm.
true enough, very much true enough to give you some insight into how you might lead or how you might sell or things that you can improve in your own life. Okay. So I loved it. And I said to Steve, my business partner, I said, mate, we need to be able to create a form of sales training specifically. Like the thing with Marshall was just general business, general wealth
Yeah.
management. I said, we need to be able to create a training that centers around games with sales specifically, because we've trained, mate, I've trained thousands of people around the world, taught sales psychology to so many companies, people, students, etc.
Mm.
And you always get the same response, which is, how was the training?
Mm.
Loved it. Got so many light bulb moments. Can't wait to implement that thing. Awesome.
Yeah.
Follow up 3 months later. How'd you go implementing that thing? Yeah, no, it's still there. We're still
Yeah. No.
keen. Love that. That was a good session, right? So nothing actually gets implemented. But the thing was with games, with game-based training, is what you learn in the room about yourself. Almost upon learning it, it changes your implementation immediately. So you almost like can't not implement after it, because you're a different person after you leave the
Mm.
room.
Mm.
And that different person that you have become is the person that's ready to implement. So you just implement naturally.
Yeah.
So anyway, I said to Steve, we've got to do it for sales specifically. So we created an event. We called it, at the time, it was called the Consultative Sales Game. It's so funny to think of that now, mate. But it was called the Consultative Sales Game. I sold a bunch of tickets and got 20 people in the room or something like
Yeah.
that, just out of our closest network. Ran the event. And essentially, mate, the way that the main part of the event went, this is what the Consultative Sales Game was at the time. The rules of the game were really simple. And I created them this way because I wanted to show people that your creativity is what is going to help you. Your creativity and your adaptability is what's going to help
Mm.
you most in life. So we made the rules as blank canvas as we possibly could make them. So here's the rules of the game. When anyone plays the sales game, whenever they came to play the sales game, what has now become the leadership game, that
Yeah.
part of the story is to come. But
Yeah.
essentially the rules were this, Darren. You're in a room with, say, 20 other people. You each have a stack of chips in front of you, say 20 chips, like poker chips.
Yeah.
At the end of this game, the person with the most chips is going to be the winner. The person with the least will be the loser. How you go about getting more chips off other players is completely up to you. There are no rules. Just know that everyone else in the room has the exact same outcome or desire as you, and that is to win the game with the most chips. Go.
Go. And how long was the live event for?
It went for a day.
A
The
whole
first,
day.
no, the first one went for 2 days. So it was a 2 day
2 day
event.
event, and that was the rules.
And that was the rules. So, as you can imagine, people take different approaches. So, some
Yes.
people freeze,
Yeah.
some people immediately start creating relationships, some people immediately start giving away their chips, thinking that might
Mm,
help. Whatever, all these strategies come to the fore, but how you play this game tells you how you are playing life.
mm,
Very fascinating stuff. So then we introduce rules like a tax and an education system and all that. Like it builds as the day goes, but
okay.
overall, the essence of it is there. Um, so that's how we played it, right? And we got all this video testimonials, people going nuts for it, people loving it. They're just like, this is awesome, like best training I've ever done. Never
Yeah.
attended anything better, right? Their words, not ours. We were stoked with that. I don't want this to be a pitch or a plug. That's not my
Yeah.
intention. It was just really cool to hear their reviews. Anyway, this guy gets on to us overseas. His name's Dale Dupree, great man. Gets on to me and he gives me a call. He's like, mate, I'm over in Orlando. I see what you're doing. I love what you're doing. I get it. Like I get what you're trying to do here. And I understand that sales training has become boring.
Yeah.
Mate, would you come over to America and run it with our community?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about you, mate, but doing business in America as a 25-year-old bloke, I was pretty stoked. Like I wasn't 25, I must have been 27 at the time, something like that.
Yeah.
I said, mate, yeah, absolutely. We'll jump on the plane. We'll come over. Met Dale. He had me and Steve at his house. We ran like 3 or 4 events with him, and then ran the main event for his Sales Rebellion community. It's called over there, over in Orlando.
Yeah.
Right. Met a bunch of great people. Awesome, great time. Best time of my life. I had literally the best travel trip I've ever had in my life. Was that trip with Steve, and just doing a little bit of business over there and just having a ball. There was people at that event that I'm still even close with today as a result of playing the sales game with them. Anyway, ran the event, got the same reviews again. People have been like, this is just jaw dropping. Like, this is just awesome. This is so cool. Never done sales training like this. Usually it's corporate style stuff. Like this is, it's just whatever. Anyway, got good reviews. Then COVID hits. For a live event, we can't run it anymore. We can't do it as an in-person event. I said to Steve, mate, like, what if we had to? What if we had to run this thing digitally? How would we do it? So we invested heavily in building tech, and creating the digital version of the platform, where people could trade chips digitally through like an online software thing. It was awesome. It was really cool.
Like crypto.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. People are actually spending their sales game chips. Anyway, so all that happens, and then 2 companies got onto us and said, we see what you're doing. We love what you're up to. One of them, because they won't mind saying publicly, because we share this publicly and whatnot. One of them was nCino, who is one of the largest cloud banking organizations in America. The other was a company called Ellucian, one of the biggest online education providers in the UK. Both got onto this thing called the sales game. In both instances, we sold it to the leader, basically saying, we can't tell you what it is, because if we did, it would ruin the game for them. And they basically bought because they're like, we're just so curious about what this thing is. We've seen these review videos of people going wild for this thing. You've got me curious enough. We're just going to have to trust you and back you, because in COVID, we don't know how to bring people together otherwise. This is a great way to do it.
Nice.
So we did, ran it, awesome, loved it, right? Had a ball, and they were great companies to work with. Cannot speak more highly of nCino and Ellucian. And I won't say the names, but the 2 people that we worked with through those companies, great people to work with. Anyway, so all of that's happening, and then the sales game as we knew it sort of tapered off a bit, because the world sort of started to come back online again a bit more, in terms of COVID was starting to drop off a bit. People were doing business back the normal way again. So Steve and I just got back, just straight into consulting, coaching, working with companies, etc.
Yeah.
We still ran the sales game as an event for companies like inside it, but we didn't run it as a public event so much anymore. We've got public events coming up soon, but that's besides the point. But that's something we want to do more of, right? Anyway, throughout it all, we had a lot of people come up to us and say, hey, love what you're doing with this gamification stuff. What have you created a game for us that we could play all day, every day in our own roles to help us get better at sales? So Steve and I put our heads together and we thought, well, what if we created the arcade for salespeople? So the arcade, Darren, you go to You go to the arcade, you play all the games, you collect all the tickets, and then you cash the tickets in for a crappy basketball ring or a fluffy
That's
teddy bear.
right.
And then, right? So that's what we created. We created it called Outbound. It's called the Outbound game. It's been running now for about 4 or 5 years. Companies all over the world on it, thousands of users, etc. Fun stuff. Didn't take off in the way that we wanted it to. We originally had the idea that it was going to be sort of more like a SaaS model, subscriptions, players,
Yeah.
etc. What we've come to learn is it's just a really great tool to help us with our own consulting and coaching and driving activity. So to this day, on that platform, we've had 1.3 million sales activities logged through it, $1 billion in closed revenue through the users, and around about 13,000 team goals and missions complete.
Hmm.
So that's really cool because it tells us so much data about the activity, sales activity, outbound calls, booking meetings, all that sort of stuff that's actually happening inside sales teams.
Yeah.
And we can start to understand that data in a way that helps us be the best leader and best manager for those teams in terms of driving their focus and productivity.
Mm.
Like we've seen all the data. We know if you want to be the most focused and productive salesperson in the room, this is the way you should set up your day.
Yeah.
So we've got all that data, which was really cool. So anyway, that's the journey. Started with the sales game, that turned into Outbound, still a little bit of sales game sprinkled in between. And then only just recently, we have rebranded the sales game, still the exact same event, but we've rebranded it to the leadership game simply because the leadership game is a bigger conversation to have. We can play some bigger games with leadership. We're more interested from a leadership perspective, how people show up in the room. There's a lot going on there. So that's the helicopter
Right.
story, mate. Yeah.
That
I
is
didn't waffle on there too much, but
no,
yeah.
no, it's a brilliant story, and it just goes to show how um how you can bring gamification to any environment and people can embrace it and they're playing a game, but through the game they're demonstrating life, I guess, habits, but
Yeah.
also hopefully through the interaction recognizing what habits are working and what's not working, but getting a realization from other people in terms of how they go about things, which is an opportunity to actually take on board maybe some adaptability and some flexibility that's going to help them not just in their day-to-day role, but in their life because
There you go, mate.
it's
That's
all
it.
it's all connected.
We typically see the playing of the game through 4 different categories. One is the awareness of self. How well do
Mm,
you know yourself and your own habits? Second is the backing of self. How well do you back yourself when you're uncomfortable or not confident? How do you take the courage and move forward anyway?
mm,
Third is the knowledge of others. How well do you know other people and how they operate? And then the fourth is the backing of others.
mm.
So how well do you, if you know what you're doing, how well can you put down your own chips and go take care of other people and help them win the
Yeah,
game too? So
yeah.
yeah, you see it come out in 4 different areas. Pretty
Teasing
interesting.
you a lot because when you mentioned at the beginning, you're talking about, hey, here are the rules of the game. Pretty much, there are your chips. Go to it. The person who has the most chips at the end wins, and the one that doesn't loses.
Yeah.
Go, because then you said, hey, people are going to start. Some will just sit there, not do anything. They're almost like, I'm not going to play this game. Others will start building relationships. Others might start giving away stuff, so
Mm,
compromising as a way of
mm,
maybe building some what they think is camaraderie and favors. That hopefully they'll
mm,
get something in return. And I'm sure others have built specific strategies on how they can maximize the return, which
100%.
is exactly what happens in everyday life with
Oh
every
yeah, mate.
business on the planet.
Mate, some of the stories that have come out of the sales game room and the leadership game room is just extraordinary. Like the difference between the way Americans play the game and Australians play the game.
Yeah,
At the start of every game, we do what's called a chip grab. So basically, we take the amount of people that are in the room and we put a prime number of chips in the
yeah,
middle of the room so that they can't be divisible by any number of however many
yeah,
people are in the room. Doesn't matter.
yeah.
And so we say to them, your first job is to split these chips. So away you go. And then, of course, there's always 3 or 4 chips left over and no one knows what to do with them, but they have to go to someone. So,
Mm,
now Australians, the way Australians play is everything has to be fair.
right.
So if there is leftover chips, they'll ask us, can we just put these chips in the middle for whatever? Like, not, we don't want to give these chips to anyone. Whereas with Americans, they got up, big stack of chips in the middle. They all got up, grabbed a big stack of chips, like handful each,
Yeah,
left some people with only 1 or 2, but some people had 45. And we said, Steve and I are Aussies. So we're
yeah,
at the front of the room going, okay, so how does everyone feel about this?
yeah,
Thinking that the people with only 1 or 2 chips are going to be like, oh, that's unfair. Like, can we do
yeah,
this again? And do you know
yeah.
what they said? Oh, forget it, man. Doesn't matter how you start. All that matters is how you end. Let's get playing.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Take
Yeah.
that as a
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah. We see differences in, we've played a room of 100 and had 130 accountants playing one day down in Hobart.
Oh my goodness.
So you can imagine they played very differently. Tax is a component of the game. It comes in throughout the rounds.
Yeah.
So the way that they creatively knew how to dodge tax, literally, they created the system in the game that they could actually not have to pay the tax that we had created, was genius, mate. It was awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. Really cool stuff. Really cool stuff.
So let's talk then about some of the psychology through this, because you mentioned before that you've got all this data that you've been able to collate over the journey, and it'd be great insights in terms of how people behave, what's the psychology behind that, what drives them,
Mm.
etc. Are there some key lessons that you and Steve have realized out of this that perhaps going into it when you first created it you didn't anticipate that's
Love
helped
that
you
question, mate.
really accelerate?
Yeah. So what you're talking about there is the Outbound platform, separate from leadership game slash sales game. So I'll go down that route. So yes, absolutely. I love that you asked the question. When we first created the Outbound platform, and just to sort of give you a picture, the Outbound platform is essentially, as a sales leader, you'd say, "Hey, Darcy, hey, Steve, we want people to do more outbound calls, book more face-to-face meetings, do more LinkedIn posts, and get more webinar registrations, something
Mm.
like this." So you track each of those activities and you reward each of those activities with coins in the platform.
Hmm.
Once they've stacked up enough coins, they can spend those coins on rewards that they want, or commission payouts or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
You're just rewarding people for doing more activity.
Yeah.
It's Pavlov's dog 101. Ring the bell and whatever. That's a deep cut for our psychology fans out there. Anyone else would be like, who on earth is
It's
Pavlov? Anyway,
Pavlov.
go ask AI. It'll tell you. So the thing that we had discovered is when we first created it, we would say to people, like, you can gamify anything. Like, you want your people to be doing like 12 more actions, different
Mm.
stuff. You just put it in this platform, people will go do it. And that turned out actually not necessarily be true. It's sort of like, it might be true for the first few days that people are on the platform, but
Yeah.
over time, people, whatever. What happens is what we've learned, we tried 12 actions, we tried 7 actions, we tried 1 action, that wasn't enough, we went, whatever. Mate, we landed on the magic number. Salespeople are simple people.
Mm.
You and I, as salespeople, we're simple people. If something's simple, we grip onto it and we love it and it works. Is that we have discovered what we call the 2-1 rule. And the 2-1 rule is essentially, through all of this data, through all of our experience, we've discovered that salespeople, if you can just give them the top 2 most impactful activities to focus on,
Yep.
and the one lag measure result that is a reflection of how well they're doing those other 2, that's what we call the focus 3. That's it.
The power of
The
3.
power of 3, mate. So it keeps it simple. So for example, we have what we call 2 lead measures and 1 lag measure. For
Yep.
those sales leaders, most sales leaders will have heard of that term before.
Mm.
When I say lead and lag, Darren, I'm guessing you know what I'm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So lead measures is things in our control that we can do, and we can choose to do them or not do them literally right now. So if I make an outbound call, I can choose to pick up the phone and do it. That's in my
Yep.
control. It's called a lead measure. The lag measure is for example, the thing that is actually less in our control than a lot of salespeople would think. It's actually a whole lot more up to the customer as to whether
Mm.
that happens or not. The classic example, of course, in sales is closed revenue amount. That's actually not
Yep.
up to you. You can influence it by taking care of all the lead measures, the things that are in your control. But the lag measure at the end of the day will always be the thing that you discover. Hey, did we close enough deals or not?
Yep.
Another example might be pipeline generated or something like that, right? So in a classic sales team, the 2-1 rule might be, for example, team, the 2 lead measures I want you focused on is outbound calls
Mm.
and booking meetings. And even booking meetings is a slight bit of lag because you need the buyer to agree to the meeting. But let's just, for the sake of this conversation,
Yep.
call it a lead measure. I need you to do outbound calls and I need you to book meetings. And the lag measure at the end of the day is going to be closed revenue.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Just gamify, just focus, just hone in on those 3 things. The rest of your role is going to involve a number of things. There's going to be other stuff you're going to do in your day,
Yep.
but we need to hit our KPI goals around those 3 things. That's it.
Mm.
Just focus on that. Or it might be something like face-to-face meetings complete, proposals sent, and revenue generated in pipeline, like
Yeah.
potential pipeline generated, whatever it may
Yeah.
be. Just focus on those three things.
Mm.
And through the platform, what we've discovered is that if you just focus on your focus three, so your 2-1 rule, 2 lead, 1
Mhm.
lag, and then you have 3 components sitting behind it that make it work, is this. You need that goal to be visible. So people need to be able to look up at a glance and know, am I ahead or behind on that KPI activity?
Yeah.
Is it timed? Meaning there's literally a time we have that when it runs out, we'll have won or lost on that goal.
Yeah.
Like it's literally a 30-day goal that we have on these 500 outbound calls that we need to make. You need to have it timed. So it needs to be visible, needs to be timed. And the third one is communication. It needs to be
Mhm.
spoken about a bit. It's one thing to have it visible and timed, but if it's never brought up at your sales meetings,
Yeah.
salespeople will inherently know, oh, I can probably get away with this and not
That's
be questioned
right.
about it.
I'll just fly under the radar. It's all good.
Exactly. So yeah, so if you have those, you got the 2-1 rule in place and those 3 things underpinning it, you have a focused sales team. That's it.
Brilliant. With that, I wanted to ask you a question in your experience with you and Steve running this with sales teams, because I have a certain perception around internal competition. And a lot of organizations, a lot of sales teams and sales leaders like to have like the sales board, right? It's the ladder of champions or the
Yeah.
ladder of doom, whatever they want to think about
Yeah,
it.
depending on which end of it you're at. Yeah,
Yeah,
true.
so and delving into the psychology, because I'm really curious around what motivates salespeople and what motivates leaders. This is a question I always ask them in terms of what they do. In the game that you've created, when you're talking about those 2 lead and 1 lag measures and the communication part and the visibility component, how much of that visibility is driving some internal competition, not as a way of saying I'm better than you, but as a way of actually creating some momentum within the team, and how much of the, I guess, the feedback as a motivational factor have you got, if any, if any?
I've studied psychology. As I said, I picked up my first psychology book, watched my first psychology documentary when I was 10 years old. Since that day, I've been obsessed with the human brain and why we do what we do. Gone on to study psychology, coaching, training, leading, managing extensively. In all of that time, I'm nearly 35 now, so it's what going on, 25 years later. In all of that time, what I've discovered is the one thing that drives people in a work environment, productive wise, specifically, one thing more than anything else,
Yeah,
Darren, it's visibility. If the goal is up on a screen and it's visible for all to see, and the work that you're putting in is visible for all to see. And if you're behind on your goals, it's visible for all to see. And if you're in front on your goals, it's visible for all to see. That
yeah.
is the number one thing that drives people as a motivator in a working environment over and above everything else, in my professional experience.
Wow.
It is supremely powerful. So
Yeah,
much so that if you do all the other stuff, but none of it's visible, you might as well throw it in the bin.
yeah.
You've got to have visibility. Otherwise, nothing will change. I think, Darren, I think people are just at their core, I think we're social beings,
Well, we
like
are.
we are very social beings. And so we compare ourselves to others, we judge
Mm,
others. It's very
mm.
human nature to do all those things. I know it's very
Yeah,
2025 to be like accepting of everyone. I get it. But deeper and on deeper level, in a more core human nature part of us, there is a part of us that can't help but judge others, can't help but see ourselves as how am I doing against them versus
yeah,
them compared to them. It's a
yeah.
very, very natural human thing. So
Well, it
yeah,
is, and I guess the emotional intelligence component of that is when we see the visibility, and if our performance, our output, our goals are visible to us, but also to others, it's having the, I guess, the awareness not to play the comparison game to the point where there's envy, but to play
yes,
the comparison game in terms of, okay, what is Darcy doing to get the results that he's getting that I'm potentially not doing, and how can I role model what he's doing so I can install that strategy to get the same result? So use
yes,
that as a motivational force moving forward, not as an envious thing to say, mate, who do you think you are, Darcy?
exactly.
Don't you understand in Australia, we've got this thing called a tall poppy. You're a tall
Yeah,
poppy. I'm
yeah,
going to
yeah.
drag you down, my
Drag you
friend.
down. Yeah. I think yeah, that angle doesn't so much speak to the essence of gamification. That just speaks to the essence of whether human beings are humble or envious. The gamification is just the tool that sits on top of it and exemplifies it really more than anything else.
Yeah.
Um, the the thing that we've found that really helps with this, because the last thing you're so right, Darren. The last thing you want to do is create envy within teams and
Mm.
implement something that was meant to boost culture and boost morale and boost motivation, and only actually
Yeah.
ends up becoming a little bit toxic internally of who's beaten
Yeah.
who. And that's good. I like a good bit of competition, but it can go, and like anything, can go too far.
Yeah.
Um, we found that the key is the goals themselves are best, depending on your company, but are best set up as team goals,
Mm-hmm.
and the reward is team based. So
Yeah.
if as a team we all hit our outbound call KPIs, our booked meeting KPIs, and our closed revenue, then as a team we celebrate with a big lunch on a Friday on the last Friday of the month, or whatever. Keep it team focused, because then Darren, if you're behind me, before where it was like I'm better than you, I want you to stay down. Now
Yeah.
it's like I'm doing a bit more than you. Maybe there's something I can teach you to bring you up, and we're going to hit this
Yeah.
goal together. So
Yeah.
something to keep
Which
in mind.
which points into another conversation, and another question I've got. So I have always been really curious around this concept of a sales team, and how do we incentivize sales people within a sales team?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's lots of thoughts out there about do we have individual compensation plans, so you have your own target and therefore you'll be rewarded based on your own individual effort, or do we start to move towards more of a team-based incentive program where everybody makes a contribution to the team and there's nobody that actually can super achieve above everybody else? Because hey, in some businesses they get the luck of the draw, they might have the best customers, etc., and they get lucky, right? So in the work that you're doing around the psychology stuff and the consulting you do in businesses, have you got a thought around what sort of structure best suits sales teams in 2025? Is it more the individual targeting, or is it more the team-based stuff with some individual nuances?
That's such a good question, and one that doesn't have a direct answer, because every team's going to be
Depends.
different. Yeah, every team has like a different, origin story of how they employed these salespeople to begin with, and what was promised early on, and then
Mm,
what it's become, etc. There's also the thing you got to keep in mind, which is the payment of people isn't fair. In a leadership position, it can look like on the surface you're doing less work with your hands and the tools in your hand, but you're
yeah,
getting paid a whole lot more. The reason for that is people aren't paid for the quantity of work that they do; they're paid for the level of responsibility they take on.
yeah,
And so that can make it tough. So in a game like this, so we're talking where you get paid for doing activity,
mm,
well, I'm doing all the activity, but still I'm not earning as much money as the person
yeah,
higher than me, right? So where we see a lot of success, we've built out our own and explored it a bit. Have you ever heard of profit share models?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, as I said, every company's different, but I just think there's something there. I think there's an essence to that can work for a lot of people if the whole company's ready to buy into it.
Mm,
Um, with profit share models, for those that don't know, essentially you take, profit that's left over at the end of the day, and it usually involves schooling everyone up on the finances of a business so that people
yeah,
understand, oh, Darren's my boss and he works so hard. But at the end of the day, it looks like he gets $1 million in his bank account, but really he only walks away with $13,000. Like
yeah,
once you understand the finances of a business, you realize margins can be really slim.
yes,
So where they work though is, of course, once you have the profit left over, the whole team takes a share of that profit pie.
mm,
But what I like about it is you take a share of it based on percentage that links back to your current salary. So, for example, if I get paid twice as much as you, Darren, I actually do take 2 times more of that pie once it's
yeah,
split up, because there will be a level of responsibility higher that I'm taking. So
yeah,
everyone's driven to make more money relative to their own position, but we're only ever getting there if we actually profit as a whole team.
yeah,
What that does, Darren, is awesome, I reckon, is it sort of gets everyone involved in like, do we want to hire this person?
mm,
Because everyone looks at it and goes, well, yeah, it'd be handy, but it's costing money, which is now taking away from the profit share that each of us could be
that's it.
involved in. So everyone gets a bit bigger buy-in.
Mm,
Where profit share models don't work is when the company isn't profiting.
yes,
And that crushes motivation, because
yeah,
then people are like, oh, what's the point of even doing anything anyway? We're not getting any of that profit share stuff. We're not in the green. So forget it. Maybe we'll start again in 2026. So that's what you got to be careful of, really careful of.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I see the profit share working, and a lot of consulting companies do that. Like I've had a few clients in, like they've been directors of town planning, or they've been directors of some sort of consulting firm providing
Mm.
professional services, and but you only get a profit share when you get to a certain status.
Yep.
So you've got to be an associate or a director because it means you've literally got skin in the game. And in
Nice.
those sort of models, sometimes in order to be part of the profit share, you actually have to make an investment in the business. So you have equity in the business, right? So that can work. But I think what you're also talking about is in the profit share concept, you don't necessarily have to have put money into the business. And often the amount of money you put in is commensurate with the amount of money or percentage you can take out because you'll
Yep.
have a certain percentage ownership of the business. But what I think what you're saying is from a perspective of driving team-based motivation so everybody wins, so we're contributing for the greater good, is how do I make a contribution? And if I make a contribution and the team wins, then I'll get a percentage of the spoils as long as the
Yes.
profitability of the company is maintained. That
Yes.
should be an
Yes.
incentive for us to drive towards
That's right.
better
And
outcomes.
yeah, and as I said, there's so many different ways to skin the cat. It's one that I have seen work really well.
Mm,
I've also seen it not work so well, but no matter what model you employ,
yeah,
you're going to have your pros and cons.
yeah.
But yeah, yeah.
So, mate, I want to delve in. I love this conversation so far. I want to delve in because you've done a lot of work around the gamification. You've worked with a lot of organizations. One question I did ask before I asked the other question I was going to think about just then
Mm.
is you're now specializing in construction and manufacturing. Now, back in the day, we talked about, hey, either select a niche or the niche is going to find you. How did that come about, my
Oh,
friend?
mate, I am the least. Mate, I've picked
Because
up.
you're not construction-y.
Nah, I've picked up 4 hammers in my life. 3 of them were a spanner, thinking it was a hammer. Mate, seriously, I've banged in 10 nails in my life. I am the least construction manufacturing guy you've ever seen, right? Like I could not care. I'll tell you this, I could not care less for how things are made.
Yeah,
I'm a human guy. I'm a motivation
yeah,
psychology. I'm a people guy. I love the people that are doing the building, but I don't care about the building itself. And so that's actually how me and my business partner Steve did decide to skin this cat. Was we got into business together. A lot of his previous network was in construction manufacturing. We realized we could do great work together there. Me taking care of the psychology stuff, him taking care more of the business strategy and the operations side of things, and how sales
yeah,
pairs with operations because that has a lot to do more to do with how things are made.
yeah.
You know, he's a how things are made guy. He cares about cars. I don't know if you lift underneath the hood of a car, mate. I'm dead. I'm done. You know those 3D eye puzzles where if you hold them back long enough, you can
Yes.
see that. That's what the bottom of a car looks like to me. The hood of a car looks like to me. Anyway, so we found that niche and enjoy that niche largely because it's supremely underserviced.
Mm,
So it's typically blue collar work, and blue collar work is very unsexy.
mm,
And most of the businesses that exist in it sort of hang out at around that sort of 10 to 50, maybe 20 to 100 mil range.
yeah,
Usually sales teams of 8 to 15, 6 to 15, whatever it may be.
yeah,
Sales leader is usually someone who was just good at sales before, and they've just been now put into the sales leadership position, even though they've never led really before. So they feel like they need help.
yeah.
So just everything, it just ticks so many boxes as a niche.
Mm,
Now, as I said, whether or not there's more buildings in this world tomorrow than there were yesterday, I could not care less about the mission and the vision of that. I don't know how to connect with that.
yeah,
Not there's anything wrong with it. I just don't
yeah.
align. It doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't light me up. But I love working with the people that do it. And so long as I'm working with people that are
Mm,
keen to learn and ambitious and want to grow, whether you're selling projects, a construction project, or you're selling iPhones, I don't care. You're still
mm,
a human being at the end of the day, and I'm
yeah,
interested in you, the human being. So that's it. And it's also a very profitable niche, mate. Like it's construction
yeah,
manufacturing. When it's going well, it's
yeah.
a really profitable niche. When it's having a tough time, which it currently is in Australia, companies can get really crushed, mate. They can get really squeezed. It's tough to see, but that's business for you, isn't it? At the end of the
It
day.
is, and it's interesting. Like in the construction in particular, I thought, and I had a perception because I used to be in the building industry many years ago before I even got into sales, and And I thought, yeah, there's lots of profit, lots of big margins. But I was talking to a client recently, and they're a global organization that does a lot of big infrastructure, big stadium type projects. And they were talking that if they can get single digit margins, they're doing really well. And
Mm,
I'm sitting
mm,
there
mm.
thinking, whoa, which means that cost of supply, materials, labor, unions, all that sort of stuff just eats away at the potential
Oh, there's so many
margins.
moving
It's insane.
parts. Yeah, so many
Which
moving
means you have to
parts.
get really good at influence, building relationships, building credibility, so you can focus the attention on the value creation, not the, I guess, the cost and benefit
Nailed it,
stuff.
mate. That's it. Because particularly in manufacturing,
Yeah.
people often get compared what we call apples for apples, which
Mm.
is, mate, I can buy this pump the same way I can buy it here. I can buy it down the road for they're offering me for $10 cheaper,
Yeah.
$100 cheaper, $1,000 cheaper, whatever it may be. So why should I go with you? You're
Mm.
basically selling the same thing, and it all comes down to that value creation that sits outside of the product.
That's it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is awesome. So, the question I had for you
Mm.
is you mentioned before you've been able to collect a lot of data, a lot of information across the world with all the gamification stuff you've been doing. I want to ask you a question around insights from a sales leadership perspective. So, the information that you get, gathering you got, whether it be the motivation factor, the activities that drive value, whatever the case might be, are there some key insights that you and Steve have been able to get from all the work you've been doing that if a sales leader was starting in an organization today, you would say, if you were coaching them, if you were consulting with them, hey, if you focus on these areas, this is going to give you a really fast start and a solid start to not only your sales leadership career,
Mm.
but a platform for your team to eventually be sustainably successful.
Nice. First one definitely is the 2-1 rule that we mentioned
Yeah.
before. So we've spoken about that. So I'll park that, but definitely hone into that. What are those two lead measures and one lag measure that as long as the team hits these goals, we'll be on track? Hone in on that, discover
Mm.
what that is. The second one is this: um, salespeople, typically ideal salespeople that are driven by reward and driven by growth, which ideally most salespeople are. Um, they You get the best out of them once they realize their rewards. So you can drive them, you can try and lead them, you can crack them with the whip where it's needed, you can have tough conversations, you can all of that, you can do all of it, and none of it will really land until what they implement with you actually achieves a result for them, usually monetarily or reward
Mm.
wise. So they'll struggle to listen to you until listening to you results in an extra 2.5 grand in their bank account last month. And their partner is absolutely stoked because now they get to go to Bali over Christmas and they've been able to pay for that.
Yeah.
Right. Once that happens, then as a leader, you've got a follower.
Mm.
You've got a good person who's, you got a disciple, you got someone who's in.
Mm.
But until that point, usually what it sounds like is just micromanaging.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's the first part of it. The second part of it goes with this, which is I would ask so many sales leaders, do you pay your team commissions?
Mm.
99%, particularly in Australia, will say, yep, our sales team is paid on commission. And then you say to them, cool, what do they spend their commissions on?
Mm.
What's Johnny spend his commissions on? What does Sally spend her commissions on?
Yeah.
And 99% of sales leaders don't know the answer to that. They don't know what their team are actually coming to work for.
Yes.
So if you can sit down with your team and say, hey, like, what are you into? Like, what are you spending this on? What's all this going towards? You get a number of answers. Number one could be something like a hobby that they're interested in. I use this to pay for the new jet ski I'm about to get because that's what I want to do. Every summer we go jet skiing in Port Macquarie and I think it's awesome, blah, blah. That's one thing.
Yeah.
The second thing you might hear is they're like, mate, honestly, it's just all going towards the mortgage. The
Mm.
mortgage, tell me more. What's all that about? Oh, mate, we bought a house. We probably overspent on our house, but it was the dream house that we wanted. And so I work on that every weekend, mate. I'm out the back working on the house and paying for the house and that, but it means that a lot to my family because now we got
Mm.
a 2 acres that the kids can run around on, whatever.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
get to learn what's really important to people. And when they know that you know what's important to them, and you're giving them feedback that's going to help them now achieve more of that, now you're a team. Now you can actually start working together, as opposed to, Darren, you work for me and you got to get me a result, because if you don't get me the result, I got to go to the board and I'm going to get my ass kicked. no one's coming to work for that, mate. Not in the
Yeah.
year 2025.
So make more calls, Darcy.
Yeah, exactly. So make more calls. Go hit that
Smiling
goal.
and dialing, baby. Smiling and
Mm,
dialing.
mm. Yes,
No, I
yes.
love that because, and I will say, and that wasn't a planted question, by the way, but I'm so glad you answered it in that way because my own experience with not just sales leaders but leaders in general is
Mm,
if I ask them the question, if you've got five, six people in your team, you've got 10 people in the team. If I ask you the question, what floats their boat? What is exciting for them? Why do they come to work? I get
mm,
silence. And I say, okay, and you expect to be able to build credibility to the point where your team is choosing to follow you and you don't know anything about your team.
mm,
You just look at them as a direct report and get this, maybe a subordinate on an organizational chart,
mm, mm,
and you're trying to drive a high performance culture and you know not the first thing about why each of your people have chosen to come to this organization and why they keep choosing to come back every single day. Now, I stop short, depending on the audience, I stop short of saying shame on you, but sometimes
yeah,
I say
yeah,
shame on you, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
what you articulated so well is in sales, just as in business, there's going to be peaks and troughs, right? Everything is not going to be smooth sailing, and success is not a linear thing. It's up and down, it's backwards and forwards, it's upside down. But if you know what motivates people, if you know that the person you've got in your team is so dedicated to creating a great atmosphere at home for their kids to learn, to explore, and they need a cubby house and all that sort of stuff, that's what's going to drive them, right? So when they hit the inevitable troughs, you can just remind them, hey, Darcy, how's that cubby house going?
Mm,
Right? Just remind them
mm.
of why they do what they do, and that should invoke the intrinsic motivation to come back. And
Nice.
I say to teams that you don't have to, it's not about you prying into their personal life. It's about understanding them as human beings as to what drives them, because you'll find that most of your team members will be driven by something different.
Hmm. Yep.
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad.
Good
Yeah.
work, my friend. Good
Glad
work.
glad we're both onto something, you know. We got one thing right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, so hey, I'm conscious of time, so we'll bring this in for a bit of a soft landing.
Easy.
Um, because you talk a lot. So 2025, we're in the middle of 2025. You looking forward, you and Steve, with Y Bravo and the leadership game and Outbound game and all the stuff you're doing, consulting. I want to just touch on really briefly, AI and how you're seeing AI play out in sales and in the business, and particularly in construction and manufacturing, and how you see this playing out into 2025 and beyond, and how it might affect salespeople, but also sales leaders in how they go to market, but also how they manage the market and manage their sales pipelines.
Oh man. Okay.
We might need another hour.
We might need another hour. I'll funnel it down into a practical point here. So a lot of the menial tasks that salespeople used to be employed for will be taken by AI and are already being taken by AI. Um, it's how creative the person can be in using AI to create valuable propositions. Like, so for example, we always give the advice to our clients. You should create ROI cases for your projects, for what you're trying to sell. Like, map this out do the napkin maths of what it
Mm,
means to buy from you and what it'll cost them and the savings that will mean for them and the future investment that will result in for them. Create an ROI case for them.
mm,
Make it a no-brainer. Salespeople nod their head massively at that one and absolutely love it, but they'd never do it because going to do the research on it and doing the maths on it, some people just aren't good at maths, or
yeah,
the research takes 2.5 days and they can't afford that, so they don't do
yeah,
it. They never did it.
yeah,
Whereas you go to AI now and you literally say, here's the deal, here's the scope of the deal, here's all my notes from the CRM, write me a compelling no-brainer ROI case as to why they should move ahead with us and not the competitor.
mm,
Put it in a table, put it in a dot point, give it some emojis, make it whatever,
yeah,
and give it to me so that I can slot it straight into the proposal today, and bang, you've got it in 14 seconds, right?
yeah, yeah.
So all of that task stuff that salespeople used to be employed for is going.
Mm,
If you think that you're still in sales to complete tasks like that, you got a tough realization coming. Like Buckle up because,
Look out.
because it's not going to be pretty, right? So there's all that. So with AI, basically what salespeople need to do and what salespeople will become, I believe, is you need to be able to generate value in a way that is not replicatable or duplicatable. Because if it is, AI is going to take it. And it already is. It'll eat it for breakfast. Like the Cookie Monster eats cookies, AI's got that one covered, right? So what that means is salespeople need to start now, if they haven't already, you need to be creating media and be creating personal brand. So you should be creating a podcast. You should be running webinars. You should be interviewing people for masterclasses. You should be connecting network and creating network and shaking hands in person. Like you should be starting to think at that higher level of what if I was a media brand inside this company? Because AI can't replicate me on a podcast.
That's it.
It can take your voice and it can do the thing, but people know still people know this was a real actual human chat.
Yes.
They don't think
and it is, by the way.
To AI
avatar.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, the more that you can elevate yourself to that level, the more you'll do things that AI can never touch.
Yeah.
Now, funnily enough, it's actually going to help you exemplify more of the human being that you are, which is what sales was meant to be all about.
That's
in
it.
the first place, humans connecting with humans. So it just brings us back full 360. But Darren, I must say, that is a whole other conversation. We literally would use another hour because the more I use AI, the more I teach AI to people, the more I interact with it myself, and the more I philosophize on it, the more I've come to the understanding overall, net, it is a massive, massive negative on the future of this world. I do not see it being a good thing for us as human beings at large. I think it has some things that are drawing us in initially that are really handy for us, and that will remain handy. But the net for the human spirit is awful. Conversation perhaps for another day, but I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, and I tend to agree from the perspective of if we put too much reliance on what AI is telling us and lose the essence of, at the end of the day, we are people who are social beings who have a craving for connection.
Mate, speaking my language. We should do a whole other episode on
So
this.
we will
mate,
do another one. We will maybe do a special masterclass on AI.
Yeah. How about we do that, mate? How about we catch up in a year from now? Because AI will have had another 365 days to do what it's doing.
Yeah.
We should catch up and record another episode in a year. That'd
Sounds
be good.
great. Yeah. Sounds great. Mate, this has been an absolute joy to have you on the podcast. I can't believe it's taken nearly 800 episodes before getting the great man on play. So
I appreciate it, mate.
I do appreciate it. For people who are listening to this who do want to know a little bit more about you and what you and Steve are doing and where they can connect with you and learn more about that and all that sort of stuff, where's the best place and where do you...
Yeah, totally. So if anyone wants to come play the leadership game, we do have, I don't know when this episode goes out, Darren, but we have live events coming up at the end of July. So the Melbourne one is sold out. Sydney is August 1st, and then Brisbane is August 8th. So feel free to reach out if you want to explore that. But the best place, mate, is LinkedIn. Just hang out on LinkedIn. I'm a human being on there. I reply to every message that anyone sends me. Always up for a good network, always up for a good chat. And bonus points if you're a Sydney Swans AFL fan. That'll get you right to the top of the network.
Which, by the way, they are slowly getting their mojo back. Which I cannot say the same for the Melbourne Demons, my friend.
Well, either way, mate, I think you and I both are going to have a very open September this year.
We will. Yes, we'll have some free time. Absolutely. Yeah. Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you again, and I love the work you and Steve are doing. And keep up the great work. And mate, we will certainly schedule that follow-up podcast episode about AI in 12 months' time.
Thanks heaps for having me, mate. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Darcy. All the best, mate.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.